what are you doing with that discomfort? Are you running towards the fire and saying, honestly, I know that me becoming the best version of myself is embracing my flaws, embracing my circumstances, embracing my own insecurities, fears, and limiting beliefs, and actually running towards the fire.
So I've been on both sides. I know what it's like. When you're in that, you can't even fathom trying to give that to another person because you think it takes away from you. You think that it's going to take away from yourself.
Hey everybody, it's Bianca. Welcome back, Evolvers. It's Emilia, and I'm very excited for this episode again. Episode number 344.
Wild.
344 times we've added value to the world for free, and that doesn't even come close to the amount of times that we've been avoided. Now, I'm going to just dive right into this episode. So, one of the things that Bianca and I experience so often. Now I'm talking to you, the listeners, because we see you and we understand so deeply what happens in this arena. And it, Bianca and I, you and I have so many conversations to where just behind the scenes, our soul crumbles because we know how deeply evolve is needed in the world based on what people share with us behind the scenes when no one's looking, when there is a judgment free zone, when we have conversations with people one on one and they really give us that glimpse into their life. We have people that will give us that glimpse, say that they need all these things, know full well that that is the one thing that would actually make their life better. But yet, as soon as that person is right in front of them, they avoid that person, that one person that they need the most, like the plague. Now, why is this? I want to have this conversation because I just think it's really important for us to be raw and real and really welcome in any of the new listeners that are listening to Evolve Ventures or have stumbled upon us. Because one of the things that we see so often, and it is a wild travesty, that the one person that you need, if you're a listener right now, the one person that you need, you are likely avoiding the most. Why is this? What happens? And this is the dialogue that Bianca and I are going to get into. So, to get us started, unless you have something to say, you do.
I just want to make sure that I say this. In no way are we trying to shame, blame, or call anybody out. The intention of this episode is not for anyone listening to feel bad about themselves. And if you feel
Mhm.
triggered by this, there might be something deeper to look at. We're
Yeah.
not here to shame and criticize. We're here because there are so many people in this world who are suffering and who are struggling and who so deeply need a safe space. But they see Emilia and I, and they will run for the hills because their own what we're going to dive into today. I'm not going to talk about it yet, but what we're going to dive into today.
Yeah.
We've been avoided by so many people. And we even have people in the community who come to every single event, but they won't actually dive into any of the deeper, nuanced things with us because they're afraid of, again, everything that we're going to be diving into today. So, this
Yeah.
isn't to make anyone feel bad. This isn't to call you out. This isn't to
Mhm.
induce shame. If that does come up, that's okay. Maybe take your journal out and process through what was it that came up that really triggered you and why is that triggering you, because there might be an unlock there. And it's something that I really had to do when I used to avoid Emilia, because
Yeah.
I did for a long time. We were mission partners and I still avoided her. I saw her every day and I still avoided her.
Mm. I'm really glad that you mentioned this because I was gonna call upon you and your experiences and what what that's been like for you because exactly. You've shared that in former podcasts, and it's been really helpful because I know, and I've received this, feedback. Emilia, when it comes from you, because you're all of that, we like, it breaks the belief system, but if it comes from B, we understand because we're a little bit more like B, right? And so I get that. I understand. So it's gonna be really, really important, B, as we go through this to
Yeah.
understand, like, why is that? Why is it that when you and I know this might sound arrogant, but when you come across someone that's such a bright light, when you're when you come across that, you literally start to avoid it. More often than not, it's because you are in the dark and you're choosing to be in the dark. And that part of you is choosing that darkness because it's a lot easier. Because if you do actually start to look into the light, or if you do have people around you that are very bright and very confident and very capable and very competent, because of the comparison bias that our brains automatically go through, especially when we're not doing the best, especially when we're not choosing the best for ourselves, it can be really triggering. And it can trigger all those self loathing, self critical dialogues, that inner critic that enforces you to stay comfortable, stay the way in which you are, which is unhealthy, maladaptively coping, maybe even not that, right? What is comfortable right now for everyone joining us in this conversation is likely not going to be the ladder out of the suffering and the pain and the challenges that make your life miserable to the extent that they are. I know that for me, and I know that for everyone else, there's no exception to that. I saw something on Facebook B, and I actually downloaded this, and I think I'll post it to EVS, which it's a just an infographic, right? If you're watching on YouTube, I will put it here, but it's essentially how people view your personality. So if
Oh.
your personality is this, some people will have a negative view, and so there's a column like that, and then some people will have a positive view, and my intuition was like, "Oof, this is going to be really important, for you to download." So I'm like grooming on the column of your personality. B, how would you describe my personality? 3 words, just 3 words. Uh,
The first one that came up is fierce. Bright. Mm, how would I describe Emilia? A genius. I don't even I
Thank you so much. Okay.
Yeah.
So fierce, bright, and genius. In the column of the different personality types, do you think bold and confident, there's only 2 words. Do you think that it falls more in that or more in the, competitive, relentless category?
Both. It
Okay.
depends on the day.
Definitely. So we're just gonna go with a bold and confident. This is how I also view myself. I view myself as, or my personality, bold and confident, right? I am someone who has high levels of self-belief, and I am someone who takes action, which is oftentimes what the word bold falls under. Now, in the view of what people view that personality in the negative arena, what do you think that is?
Oh, geez. Arrogant, entitled, full of themselves,
Yeah.
selfish,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
caring.
B, in the negative view column, it says you are arrogant and lack respect in other people's eyes. Right?
Woof.
So
I
I
was
was like,
spot on.
mhm. Now, what do you think
That's
if
so
someone
sad.
were to see that personality type and they actually have a positive view on that? What do you think that would come to mind?
Confident, charismatic, capable, helpful.
Right. The words here are you are competent and self-assured. You're right on. You crushed it.
That's so
So
funny.
thanks for playing with me in the sandbox with that
You
one.
know
And I'm
why
so
I
excited
know
to
what all
use
of
it.
those are?
Tell
'Cause I
me.
felt both of them. I know. Like, it's oh, it is so hard when you have low self-worth and low self-belief to see another person doing better,
Mm.
not better than you, doing better, and not self assigning that they're better than you and you're somehow defective and there's something wrong with you and you're not good enough to what we talked about in episode 342. Like, it is so hard not to personalize it. And then on top of that, you're not going to go ask that person for help. You don't want
Mhm.
them knowing how messed up you actually are or how bad you actually feel about yourself or all of the negative things about you because the narrative is they're gonna get a big head. Oh,
Right.
I'm gonna go tell them I'm struggling, and they're gonna think that, "See, I'm so much better than this person," and blah, 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 and it's
Mhm.
it's part of the reasons why nobody compliments us.
I was
People
literally just
don't
thinking about that.
It's
"You
one of
must
the
get this
reasons.
all the time, but you're this
Never,
blah, 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 insert." It's like,
never.
actually, I got that when I was, like, maybe 8 years old because people just would give that to a young kid, but then when
Yeah,
you actually, like, are similar age or you're older than or you're, like, just younger than, the compliments actually stopped coming. Like, they're just not there anymore.
because they don't think we need it, because either they don't wanna make our heads bigger because they think we have a big head,
Yeah.
or they just don't think that we need it because, "Oh, what? I'm gonna go tell this person that they're beautiful, they probably hear it all the time." It's like, no, we actually never get told any of this stuff. Nobody compliments us. Nobody If you guys go look at the reviews that we haven't gotten reviews for this podcast, honestly, like, an embarrassingly a long
Seriously.
time. Why? Because people can't give that to us. And
Yeah.
we're not here again, a lot of people are gonna turn this off because it's like, "Oh, they're just boasting about themselves." This
Yeah.
isn't just about us.
Mm-mm.
This is about every man and every woman and every human being out there who is being avoided
Mhm.
and is internalizing it. Because I know I've done that. It's like, "Is there something wrong with me? Like, why does nobody wanna be around me?"
Or it's being villainized too, like you're the
Or is
villain
being
in their
vil
story.
Exactly, because of the people in their life who are avoiding the living hell out of them because they're too afraid to look in the mirror at the way that this person and their success and their beauty and their whatever is making them feel. And I know that I know you've never done this because you have the level of self-belief that you do, and thank goodness for that. I'm so glad and I wish more people had that. I am someone who avoided people. So I've been on both sides. I know what it's like. When you're in that, you can't even fathom trying to give that to another person because you think it takes away from you.
Well said.
You think that it's going to take away from yourself. It's like the narrative that if other people have a lot of money, it means other people don't. It's like, no,
Right.
there's an infinite amount of money in the world. There's an infinite amount of beauty. Now, granted, is the system maybe not the best? Yeah, 100%. But like someone else having does not take away from you. So if you compliment somebody, if you approach somebody, if you give to somebody, it's not going to take away from you. It will actually add more to your life. So when I was really going through it,
Yeah.
my history is I was somebody I've really been reflecting a lot on my life, and I said this 2 episodes ago.
Mhm.
I looked at old photos of myself from my life starting from, like, 2013 up until, um, this year, and I saw new photos that I haven't seen in a long time,
Mhm.
and it just brought up how much my life had been shaped by my own limiting beliefs that I wasn't good enough, and the choices that I had made as a result of that. I radically hurt my life and kept ending up in these really destructive and harmful situations, in really destructive and harmful relationships. I was sexually and mentally and emotionally abused in the first relationship that I was in. Like, so reflecting on all of that, I had had a series of terrible relationships and terrible situations that had happened, and when I had met Emilia, I had set her up with Alan, and
Mm.
she didn't like him at
Not
first, and I was
fun.
like, he's amazing, like, I promise he's not a douche because he looked like it back then." And it was funny, it was funny. But I had said, like, "He's an amazing guy, just go for it." And
Mm.
then I honestly regretted it. I was like, "Why did I set them up?" Like,
Mm.
I helped these people get everything, and they already have everything. They're both beautiful. He's the
Mm.
CEO of a company. She has everything. Like, why them? It's not fair. My
Yeah.
life feels like it's falling apart. My relationships always suck. Things never work out for me. And yet, here are these people who have it all. It's not fair. And I didn't want to be around them. And this is when we
Yeah.
had just started the Y Power podcast. Like, we were doing all the things, and I wanted nothing to do with them
Yeah.
because of my own insecurities, because of my own feelings of shame and
Mhm.
sadness and loneliness. I couldn't let myself be around it. And it was devastating. And when I actually finally let myself acknowledge my pain and acknowledge my fears and acknowledge my insecurities and actually go talk to them about it,
Mhm.
my life radically improved. Now, it wasn't immediate.
Definitely
And
not.
looking at old photos compared to me now, even up until 3 months ago, I was self-sabotaging.
Mm.
But the changes that I've been able to make, I have a gorgeous apartment and I'm moving into a new one next month that's even better. Like, my body is the best that it's ever been. My life is the best that it's ever been. My finances are the best that they've ever been. Like, my
Mm.
life is pretty freaking awesome. Why? And again, hearing me say that's gonna trigger a lot of people, but listen to what I'm saying.
Mhm.
The only reason that happened is because I allowed myself to stop letting my own insecurities get in the way of getting help from the people that I was so insecure by.
Mm.
Going to Emilia, going to Alan and saying, "I'm really struggling with this. You guys are like the representation of everything wrong in my life, and I'm really having a hard time with this."
Yeah.
And you know what they did? They helped me figure out how I can do it for myself the way that they did it for themselves.
Mm.
We all are avoiding at least somebody, someone that we don't want to face, somebody we don't want to have to see, somebody who is a representation in our mind of what we don't have.
Mm.
Imagine what your life could look like if you worked through that feeling of insecurity and shame and low self worth and whatever, and actually let yourself go up to them and talk to them and seek guidance from them.
Mm.
It radically changed my life. I say this all the time because I know it's true and I'm not afraid to say it. Here's another thing I'm gonna add on to it. I also recognize that I naturally have a better appearance, right? And I know a lot of people are gonna look at this and they're gonna say, "Oh, well, you're beautiful. What problems did you actually have?" You guys have no idea. We all have our own
Mm.
struggles and our own difficulties. So with that being said, when I let myself talk to them and go up to them, it is the sole reason that my
Mm.
life is as amazing as it is, and it is only going to get better because I'm getting guidance from people who are gonna help me and guide me for the rest of my life to be able to thrive, not just live, not survive, thrive.
Mm.
You're missing that by avoiding. And honestly, I'm gonna say it, you're missing it by avoiding us, because there are a lot of people who avoid us. And again, this isn't to shame. This is to say it's not gonna be as scary as you think. it's not gonna be as bad as you think. There's a limiting belief that's coming up that's catastrophizing this, that, "Oh my god, they're gonna find out and they're gonna shame me and they're gonna ridicule me and I'm gonna feel terrible." You might feel bad at first, and that's okay. And your life is going to radically improve and you're not going to have to feel this way anymore because you're actually going to get the help that you need and that you've been craving and that ego part of you won't let yourself acknowledge.
Hi everyone, my name is JC DaCosta, and I just wanted to tell you a little bit about Evolve Ventures and to let you know that it is a community where you can be your authentic self. I personally have experienced a place where I can tell my story and know that I'll find somebody who has shared a similar experience. It's a community of empathy, of leadership, of growth, of opportunity, and it's just a phenomenal community with budding and growing leaders who have a voice. And it's a forum and a platform for all of this good conversation, and it's meaningful conversation. So I am grateful for Evolve Ventures and its leadership, and thank you so much for listening to my spot. Take care.
What's been fascinating for me in this is we spoke about this in group coaching, and I gave an example about how one of my biggest core limiting beliefs has been unlovability, right? Because I've always been too much for most people. I've always been, just overwhelming to people. And as a result, a lot of people will avoid, and I have a history of people avoiding me because I seem to always have the perfect answer. I always seem to have the perfect response. I always have the perfect quote unquote life. And it's been really confusing for me to see people really confess and try to confide in their deepest, darkest challenges for me. And then all of a sudden, like, randomly pop out of my life. And when I've gotten feedback on that, it's been really imperative for me to hear the perspective that you've been able to stay in the life and overcome that, because most people don't stay in my life for more than 3 years because their insecurities and their fears and all of their limiting beliefs get in the way, and then they villainize me, and then when they leave or when I outgrow them or what have you, they don't have the humility or the strength to really equip themselves with what you had done, to really say, listen, like, I'm struggling. I actually, like, I recognize that I have behaviors that are in parts of me that are wanting to avoid you, wanting to villainize you. As a matter of fact, there was a person who was on the Evolve team where on their way out, I had let them know in advance, because I had so much history of this. You're going to want to villainize me. You're going to want to villainize Evolve, because honestly, I know the value that Evolve has brought to you. I know how much we've helped you.
Yeah.
And I do know what your life is going to look like after without us in it. Like, I just know that because we have such a profound impact on people's lives. And in that time frame, 3 months, 6 months down the line, all of a sudden the behaviors didn't start matching what they had said that they would be doing, which is fine. Again, not shaming, not critiquing, not anything. This is just, it's really fascinating to see human behavior. And people want to tell themselves a story that they're not going to let their insecurities, their fears, their egos take over and villainize the person that brought them so much goodness in their life and helped them to kind of get a reprieve from the challenge, the suffering, and the misery that they're experiencing. But yet when push comes to shove, what that ends up happening is people actively will avoid. And so let's talk about some of those avoidant behaviors, because anyone that's listening to this podcast episode, you're likely growth oriented to some degree, right? It's a spectrum. You might be dipping your toe in the water for the first time around mental health, personal or professional development. And we have come into your world, and I'm grateful for that. So whether or not
Mhm.
you stick around in the Evolve community or you end up, bouncing, at least you can be self aware of what those avoidant behaviors look like. So my first question to you be, given that story, right? Like, when it came to, I remember you
Mhm.
shared a story on the podcast, which was wild because I didn't know it for like 3 years until you actually talked to me about it. So, like, that's just a a red flag on my part. I didn't know how avoidant behaviors, you were so good at hiding your insecurities, you were so good at hiding your fears, you were so good at freaking hiding from me. So, that was fascinating in and
I
of
got real
itself.
good at it.
I've been
Of
doing it my
course,
whole life. I had
right?
been doing it my whole life, and most people
Most people
are.
do. Yeah, and honestly, that's been one of the biggest awarenesses. Most people are actively, consciously, and if they're not consciously doing it, their unconscious has developed so
I
artfully
know.
at hiding the biggest insecurities and their fears and their limiting beliefs without them even consenting to it consciously. So
Yeah.
I didn't know, and what that looked like, the avoidant behavior in particular, we had a movie night. I remember I was living with my parents and you had to leave. Like, so there was actual, like, physical proximity of avoiding. You left my house because you told us there was something. So you freaking lied to us. Like, "I gotta go,
Oh,
I
yeah,
have something
straight
to do." Straight up lie, like, doesn't even hit your integrity radar. You're just piecing out because of the fact that this insecurity, you have reached a threshold of overwhelm to where your skills didn't know how to handle and sit in that discomfort, right? So you literally left my house. And again, for those of the listeners that are joining us, like, I didn't find out about this for years, right? So
I
proximity B, there's a couple things before you say anything. Number one, how can people, I wonder, and maybe this is just coming from an unlovable because I've never really been in that seat to the extent that you
Yeah.
have. So I'm curious and scratching my own itch, but I also want to make sure that anyone else listening to this podcast episode, you can kind of, like, yes, you're gonna have to out yourself and out
Oh
everyone else in this,
god.
but, like, do you actively know that you're avoiding? And if not, is there a part, because what I've seen is that there's a part, this is the ego usually, that's trying to deploy a self-protective mechanism
Mm.
that has you believing that you need to literally leave this house, you need to not respond to this DM, you need not respond or show up to this growth oriented event, you don't answer a message from Emilia or Bianca, you completely avoid anything that they're doing, right? Or, like, completely avoid XYZ. Are people aware that they're actively avoiding, right? Because that's some of the behaviors that I see.
It's very, very dependent on the person
Mm,
and the circumstance. So, like,
okay.
I also just really, for my own ego's sake, I really need to say that this was like 5 years ago. This was not any time
No,
recent.
it
Like,
wasn't.
I don't do this anymore. In
You've
fact,
gotten
I
better.
overly put myself in uncomfortable situations.
True. You're like,
I, like,
what
out
water can you
myself
throw me in?"
I out myself maybe a little more than I should if I'm if I'm really being honest, but
Little overcorrection. It's all good.
I I know it's a cred build with the people that I do it and not a cred hit, so I'm fine with it. But um and to your question, it's really dependent on the situation. So, like, a lot of
Mhm.
people, you've said this multiple times, a lot of people don't have the emotional attunement to really understand what's going on in their body and what their thoughts are that are, like, causing those physiological sensations. And so when you're in that, you just know that you don't feel okay. And there's this
Interesting.
feeling of, like, I need to run away. Like, you used to be avoidant.
Yeah.
It's that same feeling of, like, I don't know what the hell this is. I don't know what's going on, but, like, I need to get out of here. Boop.
Mm.
And you either mentally dissociate and run
Okay.
away or you're, like, actually gonna run out of the situation. So, I didn't when I was in your house,
Mhm.
I I remember having the thought, so I actually was in that circumstance aware of what it was that I was thinking and feeling, and I made the conscious choice to leave. But there
Mm.
have been, like, Alan brought this up to me yesterday because I had a call with him, and he said, "You know, B, there was actually a day when we were at Emilia's house before when, like, in the early days, and you didn't I don't even think you noticed that you did this, but we both walked upstairs and you
Mm.
literally shrunk and covered yourself." And I was like, "What?"
Oh.
He's like, "Yeah, I could tell you saw Amelia and your entire face just, like, sunk
Oh, no.
because you felt so insecure." And I was like, "What the hell?" Number 1, you have a really good memory, and number 2, yeah, probably.
He
But, like,
does.
in that moment, I definitely did it wasn't conscious, it was just this physiological hit of, like, "Oh
Yeah.
my god, like, she's so much better than me," but
Oh.
unconsciously.
Right, right, right.
So, when I was at your house that other day, when we
Mhm.
were doing that movie night, which LOL, the last time we've just hung out for shits and gigs
Or
was probably that day was the last time we ever did that, so it was, like, 5 years ago.
oh
That
my
wasn't,
god.
like anytime Amelia and I hang out, it's, like, this whole thing of me needing to, like, brainwash her to believe that it's a good idea for the mission, which granted, it's all within integrity, it's all a it's a beautiful thing, I promise, but
I'm dying.
I'm like, "Amelia, it's good for the mission, we're gonna get content," and she's like, "B, I'm not leaving my house, you're coming here," and I'm like, "Alright." But anyways.
To break we are officially off the rails. I'll get I'll get
Oh
barbecue
god, it's
chicken
so
pizza.
funny. Yeah. No, it's flatbread because low-cal.
Oh. Oh
But
my
anyways, LOL, so funny. But I remember that specific day, I did consciously I'm gonna cackle through this entire thing. I did consciously have the thought of they're so much more than I'll ever be, and I've never had a relationship like this, and I'm gonna be alone forever, and I don't wanna be around them. And honestly, why are they throwing it in my face of, like, kissing and being so lovey-dovey and not even being considerate of the fact that I just ended a relationship with someone who treated me like crap?
Ugh.
So it was like thing after thing after thing after thing after thing, and I was just like, "F you guys.
Mm.
I need to get out of here because I'm gonna start crying."
Yeah. And what's wild too, and I don't know if he shared this with you, it's like we often, Alan and I being who we are too, it's like we have to actively choose not to shrink our love, not to
Yeah.
shrink our excellence, not to shrink our competence, not to shrink all of what we are. We actively have to fight against that part that
Yeah.
wants us to do that because, truth be told, there would be more love coming from you if we were quote unquote considerate of the fact that your life was in the spot that it was.
Mhm.
Fear of you personalizing our greatness, right? And so that's it's a conscious choice to make sure that and again, this has not just been with you. This has been with so many other people in our life where it's like, "Oh, no, they just like were on the struggle bus." Does that mean we should like do a little less PDA or should we like be less of ourselves because we barely get to see each other, but people have the wildly opposite impression because of how our lifestyle is that we see each other all the time, right? And so it's like, why are you guys so lovey-dovey in person? It's like, 'cause I haven't seen my freaking man in all week. We out here grinding, my man, right? Like, here's the thing. All of us have someone right now that they're villainizing, that they're avoiding.
Mhm.
And again, those to your point, there's behaviors that you know that you're not okay, right? You know that there's discomfort here. What are you doing with that discomfort? Are you running towards the fire and saying, honestly, I know that me becoming the best version of myself is embracing my flaws, embracing my circumstances, embracing my own insecurities, fears, and limiting beliefs, and
Yeah.
actually running towards the fire. Saying, there was something really cool that I saw about bison, totally random fun facts from your girl, the animal lover. Bisons are one of the only species that when a storm is coming,
What?
they literally turn towards a storm instead of away. Whereas most species, when they see a storm coming, a winter storm, they freaking run the other direction. So, I am going to suggest, in my humble suggestion, because obviously anyone that has a negative view of this personality that's coming out here probably thinks at this point that I'm arrogant and entitled based on what we said earlier. So, I'm going to remain humble and respectful while I suggest this, pulling a page out of the bison's book of how it approaches the storms, aka the storm is that one person that you know you need the most, that you're likely avoiding, most actively actually avoiding, and the one person that you're villainizing in the story of your life right now, I would encourage you to turn towards that quote unquote storm. Turn towards, not away, but turn towards that one person that you know deep, 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 deep down that you need the most. The one person that you're villainizing, the one person that you're avoiding. And honestly, if you've been avoiding getting help, if you've been avoiding having someone in your corner to help you work through your stuff, turn towards them. You just might be wildly surprised how much love, how much compassion, and how much of an embrace you actually do get. That's what I'll close on.
Well
And my
said.
episode suggestion is is 274, what causes our emotions and how do we change them? B, what's your kind of closing sentiments and final episode?
A lot of people are going to get really upset with us because of this episode, and that's okay. This is us no longer dimming, and it's the courageous path that you and I need to take because we have dimmed for most of our life, and I've also been a massive people pleaser most of my life.
Yeah.
Um, and so this is us courageously showing up as we are, knowing that we do a lot of good for the world as we
Yeah.
are. And I'm so glad, reflecting back on that past version of me, that I didn't run away from you guys, because my life is the only reason my life is what it is because of you guys. And if I had run away from you, I would have been a miserable shell of a woman.
Mm,
Not even a woman. I would have been a miserable little girl.
that makes me
And
so
I'm
sad.
so glad that I didn't. And I'm so glad that I worked through my own insecurities and allowed myself to let you into my life, because my life is seriously amazing and it's only getting better. And yes, it's ups and downs and whatever, but like if I really take a step back and look at
Mhm.
my life is amazing. So we want that for everyone listening and watching this on YouTube. So my episode suggestion is 272, The Truth About Therapy. We hope this brings people closer to us and not further away. If it does, we understand. And for those who want to dive in, please reach out.
We're always here.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.